Good to have you back, Harry. Let's start with Steve Bannon. Bannon is best known for being Trump's chief strategist and senior counselor. Bannon's just spent 4 months in jail for his involvement in January the 6th. He's now out. He got released at 3:15 a.m. on, I guess, Tuesday morning. And Harry, you just saw him. Tell us everything.
So we were it's someone called it Park Avenue populism, because we were high up above Park Avenue in the Regency Hotel, about 12 hours after he was released from prison, in a small packed room of journalists and cameras and TVs rolling. And Bannon walks in his customary Barber double shirt, sort of flowing hair, seemingly picked up a tan in prison, not quite sure how that happened.
Do we think it was a fake tan? I did notice his tan and I thought, he's caught a touch of the Trumps.
It's all part of his scheme to get back in with Trump, right? Look more and more like him. I mean,
just a little foundation, just a little base.
Yeah.
You're going on camera. Everybody's got
Exactly right. You're going on camera.
Yeah.
TV makeup.
Yeah, tan, good hair, a consistent uniform. This is the Trump playbook, right? So Bannon's got it down too. The thing that's strange about listening to him is he seems reasonable. He's actually got quite a good voice, and so you speak to him, and he even addresses you. He doesn't treat the press with hostility. In fact, he's very glad that the elite press are there. When New York Magazine and the Wall Street Journal asked him a question, he made a point of repeating that the question was from them. Mm-hmm. And there were other points in the press conference where sort of strange networks no one had ever heard of, supposedly from the heartland or from Bannon's populist wing of the Republican Party, would ask him a question. Mm-hmm. And he seemingly was very uncomfortable and quite keen to get back to the elite media. He's just a member of the counter-elite. He's not in any way actually interested in his base, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Well, that seems a fairly consistent story with all the big MAGA politicians. He's a character, right? Mm-hmm. And he wants the big media corporations to validate him.
Completely. And I think, the disjointed experience of listening to him is, as I say, seems reasonable. But you got to remember, this was a guy who called in 2021 for the beheading of Anthony Fauci and Christopher Wray, the FBI director. Mm-hmm. And he wanted their heads on pikes as a warning to bureaucrats everywhere.
And Anthony Fauci, of course, was the head of the CDC who was leading the COVID response.
Right, exactly. And so, he said at one point in the press conference, he said, who's calling for political violence? I am a political prisoner.
Oh,
but you got to remember that his past here, a past that got him banned from Twitter. He's also been banned from YouTube. So in many ways, he's beyond the pale. And he's even sort of beyond the pale to the Trump campaign. Because if you don't remember, he fell out famously with Trump, having been his chief strategist, after calling his son treasonous for his dealings with Russia over the election.
Worming himself back in there, though.
Well, he's trying.
Trying. How do you think that's going?
Well, and also just remind us, why did he go to jail? It was for contempt, wasn't it?
The Jan 6 committee, the Congressional Jan 6 committee, wanted him to come before them and speak. At the time, Trump completely opposed the committee, didn't want any of his acolytes or wannabe acolytes like Bannon to go before the committee. And so Bannon sort of took the order from the boss, didn't go before the committee, made a big show of not going before the committee. Trump then started to see that it would be much better to have someone providing counterfire on the committee. By then it was too late for Bannon. He was already he was on the process of getting sent to jail. And when he finally turned around and said, I am ready to testify before Jan 6, it was too late. He's recast this entire experience as, I served on a Navy destroyer in my 20s, as he put it yesterday, and I went to prison for my country in my 70s. But in reality, he ended up in jail when he never wanted to go there, purely in order to serve Trump.
Right. I mean, he's already broadcast. He's already done a full broadcast on his channel. Mm-hmm. Yes, calling for political chaos, essentially. I mean, he's a nihilist. Right?
Well,
just wants to blow up the whole system.
Completely, but one thing he also called for is he called for Trump to take to the airwaves on election night.
Yes.
At 11 p.m.
Yes.
He said, don't wait until the middle of the night. He called for him to explain, quote unquote, the election to the American people.
Yes.
In other words, he wants Trump to seize control of the fact that initial voting returns are going to be more Republican than Democrat.
I remember it very well that his advice was to just call it for Trump early, so that, just to create, just to sow chaos. I mean, he is an agent of chaos, for sure.
So there's two outcomes to this election. Trump either wins or Trump says he's won.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Either we've won. Jimmy Kimmel had it good last night. He said they're saying that either we've won or it was stolen.
So he spent 4 months in prison, further radicalizing himself and others. I guess we'll see what happens in the next how many days? I don't even know how many. It feels like.
The one other thing I thought was interesting about Bannon is this was a guy who hated Elon Musk 18 months ago. He said he called Elon Musk a war profiteer for his dealings with the Chinese Communist Party. He said he's not only not an American nationalist, he's not an American. And he said he's someone who would take a check from Adolf Hitler himself. So he couldn't have been more forthright about it. Yesterday, when I asked him about this, I said, do you stand by those comments? He kissed the ring. He said, while I disagree with Elon on China, I think he's a great American who's put money in the right places, and he's had a great awakening. He's now part of the MAGA movement. I think the reality is here, he's been completely displaced, not just by the people running Trump's campaign, who we've reported on getting paid vast sums of money, but by Musk himself, who owns a platform on which Bannon is not even a presence anymore. So this was a sort of old gangland kingpin coming out of jail and realizing that the gang's been remade without him, and the richest man in the world is now atop it. That's the way I'd put it.
And normally you would think Trump could have actually sent a plane for him. I mean, he could have greeted him. He could have sent one of his sons to greet him. But in fact, he comes out on his own. He has to hold his own press conference. Meanwhile, Trump is dancing around with Elon.
Yeah, I'm a 76ers fan, right? And when Meek Mill was released from prison a couple of years ago, he was taken straight to courtside that night. Bannon could have been taken straight to Allentown, Pennsylvania, theoretically the kind of place that would welcome him. But he said, I have no plans to be part of any Trump rally. And I think that just shows that, this is a man on the outside.
So sell shares in Steve Bannon.
But he's been, spending all this time continuing to animate his base of fans and acolytes, which is a very dangerous place for us to be.
I predict that most MAGA voters will be in bed by 11 o'clock on election night. And if Trump makes one of his tedious, long, rambling weaves, they will have missed it because they'll all be asleep.
From your lips to God's ears.
All right, so now
Joanna.
we're going to talk about another rich man, another billionaire. The Beast just published an excellent column from Paul Fahey, the former media correspondent for The Washington Post. And for anyone needing a catch-up, The Washington Post, which is owned by the world's third wealthiest person, Jeff Bezos, has decided not to run an endorsement of Kamala Harris that the opinion pages had already written and had ready to go. The paper has been endorsing presidential candidates since 1988, but Will Lewis, the troubled CEO there, was sent out to explain to his newsroom that Bezos claims it makes readers think the media looks biased. And apparently he was partying with Katy Perry in Europe when the paper was in crisis over the weekend. What an embarrassing debacle. And as Eric Wimple wrote in the Washington Post, everyone would have forgotten if they'd endorsed Kamala, but no one will forget Bezos and Lewis pulling the endorsement. Harry, again, tell us everything.
So this is a paper that lost $77 million last year, as its CEO, Will Lewis, told the newsroom a few months ago in trying to justify his plans to shake up the newsroom. By losing 10% of their subscription base, they've probably lost anywhere between 10 and 30 million overnight, essentially.
Dollars,
yeah.
They've lost $250,000 readers, but they've lost between 10 and $30 million.
I mean, that's enough to wipe out most media businesses on their own, right? So it's extraordinary they can even survive that. But this is, I think, it's catastrophic. They had proudly touted the fact that they'd gained 4,000 net subscribers this summer after all their work, and they've just lost 250,000. And also, we act like that's the final number. I mean, it's just going to keep wearing away, right? So there's sort of an untold crisis. And also, any attempt to remake the newsroom, which was the whole point of Bezos hiring this outsider with a cloudy past, shall we say, in Will Lewis, any attempt to remake the newsroom is now going to become even less tenable than it felt in the summer.
Right. What do you think is the connection to Blue Origin? Because people are talking about how he has his space ambitions are they're on a very shaky foundation. He had a meeting with Trump. It feels very connected to me. It feels very connected to business decisions that he's making and taking a position of cowardice in order to continue his successful business.
So Blue Origin is this company which for 20 years has been we're going to talk about him again, eclipsed by Elon Musk. So just like Bannon is getting eclipsed by Elon Musk in Trump world, Bezos has been being completely eclipsed by Elon on the space front.
Eclipser in chief, Elon Musk. I like it.
Blue Origin is actually 2 years older than SpaceX. There's a famous picture of Musk and Bezos meeting for lunch when they both still look like geeks before their complete physical transformation.
Sure.
And in that time, Elon has gone on to build a space company that leads in sort of every domain. Whereas Blue Origin, having begun as a pet project, has in the last 6-7 years scaled up to the same size as SpaceX, but done nothing of any real effect. And on the same day that the endorsement or non-endorsement happened, the CEO of Blue Origin and the head of government relations met with Trump after a press conference. Bezos refers to this in the op-ed he then put out. So to catch you up, after the hemorrhaging of all these subscribers, Bezos puts out a defense of the non-endorsement, and he refers to this. He says, there's no basis for thinking this has anything to do with Blue Origin, and I sighed when I saw the news that they'd met on the same day as Trump. It's all very well for him to say that, but the reality is we know he stepped down from Amazon, day-to-day control of Amazon, to focus on Blue Origin. And in a comparison between focusing on the Washington Post or focusing on his space company, he's going to do what's best for the space company.
I feel like Blue Origin is the party rocket, right? Musk is actually going to rescue the people that NASA can't bring back from space, right? Mm-hmm. But actually, Blue Origin, you just think of Jeff and Lauren Sanchez, his fiancée, as taking their friends up for 11 minutes in space. I think they go up to the Kármán line and then they come back down again, right? And then he comes off with his cowboy hat and struts around with his lifts. And it doesn't feel serious.
It's suborbital flight, right?
Suborbital.
Same with Branson.
Yeah, it's party rocket.
Yeah, exactly.
It's to show off to your friends.
It's suborbital.
Yeah. It's the status games, right? It's just back to that, and Elon's eclipsing him in that regard.
But to be fair to Jeff Bezos, he has been an excellent proprietor up until now, right? He doesn't interfere. I mean, obviously there's been plenty of critical reporting of both Donald Trump and of Amazon in the Washington Post, which we're led to believe he hasn't remotely interfered with. So what is this actually about?
Well, I think he's misunderstood his role. There's a great moment in the Tina Brown diaries where she talks about Cy Newhouse, the owner of Condé Nast at the time, saying to her, I have no power. And Tina says, what do you mean you have no power? You control all the magazines. And he says, I couldn't tell any of you what to do, because if I did, you'd tell me to get lost. And I think this is really a story about the Post's leadership, namely Will Lewis, and the rest of them at the top of the paper, not having the power to say to Bezos, not having the standing to say to Bezos, you can't do this.
Right. It feels that a lot of businesses are preparing for a Trump presidency now and being very protective of their businesses, and in a way that is just so disheartening to me. And, I mean, if due to his businesses he's not interested in doing journalism in the public interest, I feel that he should get rid of it. I think that he should cut it loose.
Well, why did he buy it in the first place?
Yeah, why?
Well, I think he bought it because it was on sale, actually. Don Graham, his great friend, wanted to sell it to him, and he bought it for $250,000. But the extraordinary thing to me is he came up with the branding statement, which is very portentous, democracy dies in darkness. Right. But to then pull the endorsement when it's already been written, suggests there was no one looking out for Bezos, which is usually when executives are vulnerable, when they haven't protected their boss from, in fact, exactly what's happened, which is humiliation and then a 10% readership drop when, as you say, they've just spent the summer adding 4,000 subscribers, which they were cheering from the rooftops about.
And now is the exact wrong time to take a position of total neutrality. And I think that watching all of these tech leaders abase themselves before Trump, expecting him to win the presidency, is so deeply upsetting to me, because we know that it doesn't matter what anyone does. It doesn't matter how much people abase themselves before him. Being obsequious before him means nothing. He has no loyalty. He has the attention span of a goldfish. None of it's going to mean anything in the end anyway.
Right.
So it's a completely impotent gesture. And I do use the word impotent with full intent.
We can just spell out the quid pro quo, though, if you like, which obviously Bezos vehemently denies, which is that, why has he used the Post to advance Blue Origin? It's because he lost out on a major cloud computing deal under the Trump administration, which he later sued Trump over. So I think the fear here is that Elon, being Trump's new best friend, will benefit on the space front, and that he needs to become a sort of neutral friend to Trump, at least. So that's why he's done this. And then just with the Post, I think the most amazing stat to me is to understand how relevant it is to him. Imagine Bezos's worth is $100,000. He spent, as a comparison, for that $100,000, $130 on the Post. So if you have $100,000 in your bank and you spend $130 on something, you're not going to think about it. You're not going to care about it.
But he does care about his reputation, and this is a ding to his reputation, right?
Massively.
And also to be partying with Katy Perry. I love Katy Perry, no diss on her. But while this is going on, makes him look essentially unserious, yet he is an exceptionally serious businessman. We know that, right? We know his girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez, or fiancée, I don't know why they're not yet married, but is a great friend of Ivanka Trump's. So this just feels bad for the Post, and it feels bad for Bezos. And what I find odd is that no one within the company, and he's got, as we know, a myriad of advisors, saw this coming. This was utterly predictable. They've endorsed for the last 30 years. And in fact, they endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016 and with a teardown of Donald Trump. So this idea that somehow now we've decided to be neutral makes zero sense.
Oh, it makes no sense at all. Now is the time that you plant a flag. I know that it doesn't move voters, but now is the exact time that you plant a flag. You know, every good executive needs one person in their world who will say no to them. And that's what we are truly lacking right now.
I'm sure he's looking to sell the Post. He must be looking to unload the Post.
That was the other amazing thing about Bezos' op-ed. He basically just called out all the journalists. He was like, trust in you is at an all-time low. It's like, wow, brother, is this really how you're going to get your way out of this one?
Okay, well, Harry, I don't know what you're going to come back with next week, but we're looking forward to it. I hope you come back with,
Well, I hope we have good news next week. I hope there is news next week.
There may not be any news
There may
next
not
week.
be.